the Intergalactic Academy of Knowledge and Innovation stood as the epitome of intellectual excellence across the universe. Scholars from every corner of the galaxy vied for the honor of attending, with only the most brilliant minds earning a place in its prestigious halls. Among them was Emma Reed, the only human student to have ever enrolled. Her presence in the Academy was a source of both pride and skepticism for Earth, as humanity's membership in the Galactic Union was still fresh, and their reputation was yet to catch up with the more established civilizations. Although humans had made rapid strides in technology, they were still often viewed as underdeveloped compared to their older galactic counterparts. Emma felt the weight of this bias every day as the pressure to prove her species' worth loomed over her. In Professor Zahn's advanced galactic computation class, Emma's performance was considered nothing short of disastrous. Each week, her grades arrived as failures, a series of red marks flashing across her datapad. Zahn, a formidable figure with a shimmering crystalline exoskeleton in shades of green and blue, was one of the Academy's top intellects. To him, Emma was a perplexing oddity, an underachieving student from a primitive world that seemed entirely out of place. He found her presence increasingly frustrating, questioning how such a poor performer could have been allowed into his esteemed class, let alone the Academy. During one of his lectures, Zahn's deep voice resonated across the amphitheater-style classroom. The topic of the day was recursive algorithms, a cornerstone of galactic computational theory. His three-clawed hands swept across the hollow board, where intricate diagrams floated, constantly shifting and pulsating with vibrant energy. "Observe," Zahn began, his tone dripping with condescension. "This algorithm is both elegant and resource-efficient, solving intricate problems with minimal energy. Even the least capable mind should comprehend its significance." Seated at the back, Emma scribbled notes on her tablet with intense focus, her face etched with concentration. Yet, despite her best efforts, she couldn't shake the feeling of judgment from her fellow students. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes, their eyes glowing with iridescent colors, their bodies segmented, translucent, or armored in ways Emma could hardly begin to understand. They murmured in languages her translator struggled to keep up with, but Emma didn't need a translation to sense the contempt they held for her. Zahn paused, his multifaceted eyes scanning the room until they settled on Emma. "Miss Reed," he called, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "Would you care to explain the significance of the recursive function I just presented?" Emma's stomach dropped. She had been following along as best as she could, but Zahn's methods were clearly designed for those who had been immersed in galactic-level mathematics their entire lives. Concepts like this were still new on Earth, and they hadn't yet permeated the general education system. She took a deep breath, standing up with all eyes on her. Her voice wavered slightly as she tried to articulate her understanding. "Well, recursion allows a function to call itself," she said slowly, her words chosen carefully. "It's a method for breaking down problems into smaller, more manageable parts." Zahn's mandibles clicked in exasperation. "Yes, that much is obvious," he snapped, his impatience clear. "But what of its use in multidimensional quantum fields?" Zahn pressed, his tone heavy with disdain. "Surely, even you can comprehend that much." Emma hesitated. Multidimensional quantum fields were a concept far beyond the scope of Earth's education system. She had briefly encountered the subject in the Academy's library, but her grasp of it was far from solid. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words remained lodged in her throat. The silence that followed was suffocating. Eventually, Zahn waved a dismissive claw. As expected, he muttered, "Please, Miss Reed, sit down. Clearly, this material is beyond your reach." A ripple of laughter spread through the room, and Emma's face burned with a mixture of frustration and humiliation. She sank back into her seat, gripping her tablet as if it could anchor her to the present moment. Her mind raced, not with anger at Zahn's harshness, but with self-recrimination. She knew she could understand these complex concepts with time and patience, if only someone would give her that chance. Zahn, however, was not done. Turning back to the hollow board, he gestured to the complex equations that hovered in the air. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "this is why the Galactic Union must raise its standards. It's one thing to admit a species into our alliance, but to place them alongside truly advanced minds in educational settings. This is an injustice to us all." Emma's jaw clenched, her hands balling into fists under the desk. His words felt like a weight pressing down on her, on Earth, and on her very being as a human representative in the Academy. Her classmates' whispers and snickers grew louder, and for the first time, Emma questioned if she truly belonged here. But then something inside her stirred, a spark of defiance. She had encountered skeptics before. They had doubted her when she applied, when she faced rigorous entrance exams, when she left Earth behind for a galaxy that viewed her as little more than an outlier. Each time, she had proven them wrong. This time would be no different. Zahn, oblivious oblivious to the thoughts swirling in Emma's mind, continued his lecture. As he detailed the finer aspects of recursive algorithms, he issued a challenge to the class. Who here can solve this equation using the methods I've shown? He projected a new set of variables onto the holoboard. The room fell silent, the complexity of the problem evident even to the most advanced students. One of the aliens raised a segmented limb and made an attempt, but Zahn quickly dismissed their answer. Another student tried and failed as well. Finally, Zahn's gaze turned to Emma. "Miss Reed," he said, a sneer in his voice, "perhaps you would like to redeem yourself." With a steadying breath, Emma stood once more. This time, she felt something different: strength, resolve. She walked to the holoboard, ignoring the stifled giggles from her classmates. Gripping the digital stylus, she began to write, not in the familiar galactic symbols, but in binary code, a language few in the room recognized. As she worked through the problem methodically, sequences of ones and zeros filled the board. Her classmates watched, first in stunned silence, then with growing confusion. Even Zahn seemed momentarily lost for words. When Emma finished, she set the stylus down and stepped back, the holoboard now displaying a lengthy binary sequence that was beyond the understanding of most of her classmates. Zahn approached, his crystalline exoskeleton flashing with a surge of irritation. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice cold and clipped. "This is the solution," Emma replied steadily, meeting his gaze. "Run it through your scanner if you don't believe me." Zahn hesitated for a moment, then activated the holographic interface on his wrist. The scanner beeped as it processed the binary sequence, its lights flickering. After a few moments, a green light flashed, accompanied by a soft chime signaling success. The solution was correct. A ripple of astonishment spread through the room, and for the first time, the mighty Zorik professor found himself speechless. His mandibles clicked rapidly in frustration as he tried to reconcile what had just happened. Emma, however, stood tall, returning to her seat with a quiet air of triumph. The sting of humiliation she had felt earlier was gone, replaced by a sense of quiet victory. She knew this moment was only the first in a long fight to prove her worth, but for now, she allowed herself a brief smile of accomplishment. The classroom was now alive with murmurs. Her classmates, who had once sneered at her, now whispered amongst themselves, casting furtive glances her way. Meanwhile, Zahn remained strangely silent. The renowned Zero professor, known for his sharp intellect and sharper words, seemed thrown off balance. His multifaceted eyes shifted uncomfortably as he reviewed the binary sequence. Emma, however, was far from fooled by the fleeting change in attitude. She knew that one equation, however impressive, wouldn't change the perception others had of her. Zahn's dismissive tone still echoed in her mind, and the astonished whispers of her peers felt more like a temporary lull than the start of true respect. After class, as Emma packed her things, she made a decision. She would do something that would leave no room for doubt about her abilities. The walk back to her dormitory was a quiet one, taking her through the grand campus, a stunning blend of advanced interstellar architecture. Towering crystal structures glinted under the distant stars, connected by illuminated walkways that pulsed with energy. Students of all forms and species hurried past her, some floating in anti-gravity sacks, others moving with the fluid elegance of creatures born in zero gravity. Emma stood out in this crowd, the whispers of human trailing behind her wherever she went. Once inside the solitude of her small, functional dorm room, Emma set her datapad on the desk and stared at it, deep in thought. The Academy's grading system was unyielding, and she knew that solving one problem in an unconventional way wasn't enough to change her academic standing. If she was going to prove herself, she would need to take a far bolder step. She called up the week's assigned problem set. The equations were daunting, even by the Academy's lofty standards. As Emma scanned through them, her mind began to piece together the patterns hidden in the numbers, shapes and structures that reminded her of coding problems she had solved back on Earth. While galactic mathematics relied on multidimensional logic and abstract symbols, her approach was rooted in the binary logic of Earth's early computer systems. She wasn't going to simply adapt to the way things were done here, she was going to bend them to her own way of thinking. With determination, Emma opened a blank interface and began translating each problem into binary, line by line, weaving sequences of ones and zeros that adhered to the Academy's parameters while remaining true to the logical foundations she knew best. The work was exhausting, each step stretching her intellect and challenging her to think in ways that were both foreign and familiar. But Emma thrived in the pressure, her fingers moving quickly across the virtual keyboard as she worked toward a solution that would be impossible for anyone else to replicate. Emma felt an increasing sense of fulfillment with every solution she completed. Hours slipped away, merging seamlessly into the deep, unbroken cycle of the galactic night outside her window. The twin moons of the Academy's home planet bathed the campus in an otherworldly glow, but Emma didn't notice. Her concentration was absolute, her resolve unwavering. By the time she wrapped up her work, the first glimmers of dawn from the TriStar system were starting to creep over the horizon. She uploaded her completed solutions to the Academy's submission portal, hesitating only briefly before clicking submit. A soft chime sounded, signaling the successful upload. She leaned back in her chair, worn but energized. She knew the Academy's AI system would grade the submissions, a highly advanced program known for its flawless precision. If her answers were right, no human bias could influence the outcome. The next day, Emma's heart raced as she walked into the lecture hall. She settled into her usual seat at the back, attempting to stay calm despite the storm of anticipation inside her. As students filled the room, the atmosphere crackled with expectation. Word of her unconventional solution had spread quickly, and many were eager to see Professor Zahn's response. Zahn entered, exuding his usual authoritative presence, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights. Without acknowledging Emma or her submission, he dove straight into a lecture on algorithmic efficiency. Yet Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something in his tone was different. There was a subtle tension there that didn't go unnoticed. As the lecture drew to a close, Zahn finally addressed the class. "I've reviewed your submissions for this week's problem set," he began, his voice as commanding as ever. "Most of you did well, though there were a few exceptions. But there is one submission that deserves special attention." The room went quiet. Every eye turned toward Emma, but Zahn's gaze remained fixed on his datapad. He paused, the soft click of his mandibles filling the silence, before continuing. Miss Reed's answers were unconventional. A ripple of laughter spread through the room, but Zahn raised a claw, silencing them instantly. "However," he added, his voice turning more clipped, "the Academy's AI confirms their accuracy. Her use of binary coding, an ancient system by galactic standards, reveals a level of ingenuity that merits closer scrutiny." Emma's heart skipped a beat. Zahn's words, though begrudgingly admiring, carried a weight she hadn't expected. The class murmured in surprise, their disbelief mixing with curiosity. Zahn turned his attention fully toward Emma. "Miss Reed," he said, his voice deliberate, "your approach has introduced an element of unpredictability to our usual evaluation methods. While your answers are correct, your reliance on an outdated system raises questions about its potential for scalability in more advanced computations. Therefore, I am assigning you an additional task. You will complete next week's problem set using both your binary method and the standard galactic algorithms." Emma met his gaze, her determination solid. "I'll do it," she replied, her voice unwavering despite the butterflies in her stomach. The class ended, and as the students filtered out, many shot Emma curious glances. A few even nodded at her, small gestures but ones that spoke volumes. For the first time since she had arrived at the Academy, Emma felt as if she were beginning to truly carve out her place. The following week passed in a blur of focus and mounting tension. Emma knew that the challenges ahead would be even greater, but she was ready. Emma's dorm room transformed into a sanctuary of concentration, filled with the low hum of her datapad and the occasional chime from her binary interface. The task Professor Zahn had assigned her loomed large: solve the upcoming problem set using both the standard galactic algorithms and her binary method. It wasn't just an intellectual challenge, it was a test of her adaptability, and of whether Earth's approach to computation could hold its ground against the galaxy's advanced methods. The problem set arrived promptly as the new study cycle began. It was more complicated than anything she'd faced before, packed with equations involving multidimensional matrices, recursive logic loops, and quantum field integrations. For most of the Academy students, it was a formidable hurdle, but for Emma, it represented something much more significant, a chance to prove herself on her own terms. With relentless determination, Emma threw herself into the work. She began with the galactic algorithms, which felt like an exercise in frustration. The methods were densely packed with abstract symbols and complex layers, and they seemed unnecessarily convoluted. It was as if the galactic systems enjoyed complicating even the simplest of tasks, turning them into intricate, maze-like puzzles. But Emma pressed on, fully aware that she could not disregard the traditional method. After completing the galactic solutions, she shifted to her binary coding. Here, she felt an immediate sense of comfort and clarity, a stark contrast to the tangled complexity of the galactic methods. Binary was direct, logical, and beautifully simple, a reflection of humanity's ability to adapt to its limitations with elegance. As she converted the problems into binary form, Emma began to recognize patterns that were invisible in the galactic format. These discoveries allowed her to refine her answers, making them not only accurate but also more efficient. By the end of the week, Emma had finished both sets of solutions. Exhausted but proud, she submitted her work teamwork through the Academy's portal. The confirmation chime sounded, a mixture of relief and the onset of a new wave of anxiety. The next phase was beyond her control. She could only wait for Professor Zahn's judgment. The lecture hall was unusually quiet the day Zahn was set to review the submissions. Word had spread quickly about Emma's assignment, and the students were buzzing with anticipation to see how it would unfold. As Emma entered the room, she could feel the weight of their stares, some full of curiosity, others filled with skepticism, and a few downright hostile. The idea of a human challenging the entrenched norms of galactic education was, to many, an affront to their perceived superiority. Zahn entered, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the lights. He carried his usual air of authority, though there was a slight tension in his movements that suggested curiosity. Without any preamble, he activated the hollow board and called up the results of the week's problem set. "Before we begin today's lecture," he announced, his voice deep and commanding, "I would like to address the submissions from this week's problem set, particularly those of Miss Reed." A murmur rippled through the room, and Emma felt her heart race. She straightened in her seat, her hands gripping the edge of her desk. Zahn gestured toward the hollow board, which now displayed a side-by-side comparison of Emma's two sets of solutions, one from her binary method and the other using the galactic algorithms. The hollow board illuminated the key metrics: accuracy, efficiency, and computational energy expenditure. "The Academy's AI has verified both sets of solutions," Zahn began, his voice calm and measured. "Miss Reed's galactic algorithm solutions meet the standard expectations for this level of coursework." He paused. The room fell completely silent. However, Zahn continued, his tone shifting slightly, "Her binary solutions not only match the accuracy of the galactic algorithms, but surpass them in efficiency and energy optimization." The silence was palpable. Emma felt a surge of relief and pride, but she remained composed, knowing Zahn's assessment was far from over. Furthermore, Zahn added, his mandibles clicking softly, "The binary method has revealed redundancies in the galactic algorithms that were previously overlooked. Miss Reed's approach has exposed inefficiencies that our traditional methods failed to address." The whispers started again, but this time they were louder, filled with disbelief and intrigue. Some students looked impressed, while others seemed unable to accept what they were hearing. Zahn raised a claw, silencing the room once more. "While her solutions are undeniably effective," he said, his voice now tinged with an edge, "they also raise questions about the scalability and adaptability of such a method. Galactic computation is not confined to binary logic. It encompasses quantum states, multidimensional fields, and variables beyond the limits of two-digit coding." Emma met his gaze, her face calm but resolute. "Binary isn't a limitation," she replied, her voice steady. "It's a foundation. If we build on it, refine it, and integrate it with galactic systems, we could find solutions that are both efficient and expansive." Zahn studied her for a long moment, his crystalline exoskeleton shimmering in the light. "An intriguing perspective," he said finally, "but theory alone is not enough. If you wish to prove the viability of your approach, you must demonstrate its application on a larger scale." Emma nodded, unwavering. "Give me a challenge," she said, "something that pushes both methods to their limits. I'll show you what binary can do." The boldness of her words sent a ripple through the room, and Zahn gave a small nod, his expression unreadable. "Very well," he said. "You will receive your challenge by the end of the cycle. Prepare yourself, Miss Reed. The galaxy does not reward half measures." As the lecture continued, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be tough, but for the first time since arriving at the Academy, she felt she was no longer just surviving, she was making a real impact. The next morning, the challenge arrived. Its contents were encrypted, a format designed to make Emma's heart race with both excitement and apprehension. Zahn had crafted a task that would test her computational skills and her ability to innovate under pressure. The assignment was clear: design an algorithm capable of managing the logistics of a simulated interstellar evacuation. The parameters were complex: multiple planets with diverse populations and fluctuating environmental conditions, all requiring real-time adjustments. Success would require not only accuracy but an unprecedented level of efficiency, pushing both binary and galactic algorithms to their limits. Emma knew this was her moment, the opportunity to prove that humanity's approach to problem-solving had a legitimate place in the galactic academic elite. She wasted no time, diving into the work, her focus sharpening with each passing hour. The room seemed to disappear as Emma immersed herself completely in the intricate details of the simulation. She began with the galactic algorithm, carefully building the framework that adhered to the Academy's traditional methods. It was a slow, painstaking process, navigating through layers of complexity that often seemed redundant. But Emma persisted, ensuring that the algorithm met every parameter Zahn had set. Once the galactic galactic solution was in place, she shifted her focus to her binary approach. This was her comfort zone, breaking the problem into its fundamental components and translating them into elegant sequences of ones and zeros. As she worked, Emma discovered ways to streamline processes that the galactic algorithm had taken for granted as fixed. Despite its simplicity, the binary system allowed her to create a dynamic model that adjusted in real time, reducing the computational load and increasing efficiency. The hours blurred into days, and Emma barely noticed the passage of time, consumed by the task at hand. She ate only when necessary, and sleep became a distant luxury. When both algorithms were finally complete, Emma was physically drained, but a deep sense of accomplishment fueled her every move. With a single press of a button, she submitted her work. The confirmation chime echoed through her silent dorm room. All she could do now was wait for Zahn's evaluation. The final demonstration was scheduled for the end of the week, and the lecture hall was packed to capacity. Word of Emma's challenge had spread like wildfire, and students and faculty alike filled the seats, eager to witness the outcome. Even representatives from the Galactic Union Science Council were present, underscoring the weight of the moment. Zahn stood at the front of the room, his crystalline exoskeleton shimmering under the lights. His expression remained unreadable as he addressed the audience. Today, he began, his voice commanding, "We will witness the results of a unique experiment. Miss Reed has been tasked with designing two algorithms to solve a complex logistical problem. One follows the traditional galactic methods, while the other uses her primitive, yet intriguing, binary approach." He gestured to the hollow board, where the simulation was displayed in stunning detail. "Both algorithms have been integrated into the system. We will now observe their performance in real time." A hush fell over the room as the demonstration began. First, the galactic algorithm was activated. The hollow board came alive with intricate calculations, and the simulation progressed smoothly at first. But as unexpected variables were introduced, the algorithm struggled to adapt, resulting in noticeable delays. The audience murmured in approval. While it wasn't perfect, the solution was functional and met the basic requirements. Then came the binary algorithm. The difference was immediate and striking. As the system activated, the simulation ran with remarkable speed, adjusting to the changing variables with a fluidity that left even the most skeptical observers stunned. The efficiency was undeniable, and Emma's binary approach, once dismissed as primitive, now stood as a testament to the power of simplicity in an increasingly complex world. The binary system's ability to anticipate and adapt to shifting conditions created a seamless flow of operations, optimizing resource allocation and evacuation timing in a way the galactic algorithm could not. The room buzzed with whispered conversations, while Zahn's mandibles clicked softly, signaling his deep contemplation. As the simulation concluded, the results were displayed side by side. The galactic algorithm had completed the task with a success rate of 87%, while the binary algorithm achieved a near-perfect 98%. Moreover, the binary solution had consumed 40% less computational energy, a statistic that drew audible gasps from the audience. Zahn turned his attention to Emma, his expression unreadable. "Miss Reed," he said, his voice carrying an unusual weight, "your binary algorithm has demonstrated a level of efficiency that cannot be overlooked. While it may be grounded in what some would call primitive technology, its application has proven to be both innovative and effective." A surge of pride washed over Emma, but she maintained her composure. She met Zahn's gaze firmly. "Binary isn't just primitive," she replied. "It's universal. It's a language that can bridge gaps between systems. If we're willing to look beyond tradition, we can make it even more powerful." Zahn inclined his head slightly, a rare gesture of respect that few students had ever received. "You have given us much to consider," he said. "Innovation often arises from the most unexpected sources, and today, you've reminded us of the importance of perspective." The room erupted into applause, and for the first time since Emma had arrived at the academy, she felt truly seen, not as an outsider or an anomaly, but as a peer. After the demonstration, her classmates approached her, some offering congratulations, others eager to ask about her methods. The walls that had once isolated her began to crumble, replaced by a newfound sense of camaraderie and respect. In the weeks that followed, Emma's binary approach became a subject of intense study and debate within the academy. Zahn himself invited her to collaborate on a research paper exploring the integration of binary systems with galactic algorithms. Her work sparked a wave of innovation, proving that even the simplest ideas could make a profound impact when applied with creativity and determination. For Emma, the journey was just beginning. She knew there would always be challenges to face and prejudices to overcome, but she also understood that she had the strength to face them head-on. As she walked through the gleaming halls of the academy, she carried not just the pride of her accomplishments, accomplishments, but the realization that she had changed how the galaxy viewed humanity, and perhaps how humanity viewed itself.